Javi Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivadadhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivadadhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatiravana Syadi Jamunatiravana Syadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatiravana Syadi Jamunatiravana Syadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Sattasi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Pimanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. So the first verse of Canto 10, chapter 84. Yes. And I'm not sure of the meter, but I'll do my best. Shri Shuka Uvacha Shrutva Pratasabala Putratyata Yagate Yagyaseni 1084-1. Madhavyata Shiptipa Patyanta Patnya Utasvagopya. What's the right meter? Is that the right meter? Krishna Kilatmani Karau Pranayanubandham Sarva Visimur Alam Ashru Kala Kulaksha Shutva Pratasa Putyata Yagesheni Madhavyata Kshiptipa Pancha Uta Swagopya Krishne Kilatmani Hara Panayanubandham Sarva Vasimur Alam Ashru Kala Kalakshahu Someone else chant? Shri Shuka Uvacha Shukadev Goswami said, Shrutva, hearing, Prita, Kunti, Subala Putri, Gandhari, the daughter of King Subala, Ata, and Yagyaseni, Draupadi, Madhavi, Subhadra, Atta, and Chitipa of the kings, Patyaha, the wives, Utta, also, Sva, Lord Krishna's, Lord Krishna's own, Gopyaha, gopis, Krishna, to Krishna, Akila, of all, Atmani, the soul, Harau, the Supreme Lord Hari, Pranayaha, loving, Anubandham, attachment, Sarvaha, all of them, Visimyo, became amazed, Alam, greatly, Ashru Kala, with tears, Akula, filling, Akshaya, whose eyes. Shukadev Goswami said, Prita, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, the wives of other kings, and Lord Krishna's cowherd girlfriends. We're all amazed to hear of the Queen's deep love for Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and soul of all beings, and their eyes filled with tears. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Draupadi is the chief hearer in this assembly of exalted women since, as explained by Srila Sridhar Swami, she had asked the question that Lord Krishna's queens answered, that's the previous chapter, by relating their respective stories. Since Gandhari and the other ladies named here were not even mentioned in the previous chapter as having been present, Acharya Sridhar concludes that they must have heard the Queen's narrations only secondhand. Indeed, Draupadi would never have spoken so freely in the presence of Pritha and Gandhari, her elders, or before the gopis, whose attitude toward the queens of Dwarka was not particularly sympathetic. Even though the gopis joined in shedding tears, it was more because of their being reminded of Sri Krishna's pastimes than because of any loving affinity between them and the queens. Paragraph. We should remember, of course, that there's always perfect harmony on the spiritual platform. Apparent conflict between pure devotees is nothing like mundane envy and strife. The jealousy of the gopis was more show than substance, being exhibited by them as an ecstatic symptom of their overflowing love for Krishna. Srila Sridhar's Swamipad further analyzes the phrase Shwa Gopyaha, that's in the verse, as implying that these gopis were the queen's Swarup, the original prototypes of whom the queens were specific expansions. Om Jnana Timarandasya Kananjana Salakaya Chakshudamiritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam. Chapter 84. The scene is Kurukshetra. The circumstance, the solar eclipse. And because of the solar eclipse, as was the tradition, go to Kurukshetra, observe fasting and festivals, and observe the solar eclipse from that auspicious place. And recently there was a solar eclipse, and imagine there was a big crowd of people in Kurukshetra because it's not just ritual. There are rituals that outside of Vedic culture that just are commemorating something and commemorating something, without examples. But in Vedic culture, it's following the example of previous personalities because there's a spiritual purpose behind something that was done and then done again and done again and done again. Today is Gopastami. Yes? Today is Gopastami. So guess what? In Vrindavan, they have a ritual for Gopastami. I mean, many places have, but someone just forwarded to me. Subal remind me, and I'll forward it to you. There's a Brahmana in Nandagram who's describing how they, year after year after year after year after year after year, they have a ritual to observe Gopastami. And it's not like, Karmakanda ritual. It's very sweet. They reenact the pastime of Krishna going out to herd the cows. And it's without all the detail that you view. It's very, it's very nice. Little subtitles in case you can't understand his language. But, he's describing their annual festival. And, Vraja Bhakti is so nice. The same place, Nandagram, they had a little video. I received a little video. I'll send that to you also. For the whole month, all the elders get together every day. One of their procedures for centuries and centuries and centuries. They sing in Braj dialect a song honoring the Damodar Leela for the month of Damodar. Now that's Nandagram. Somebody made a video and circulated the video. And throughout Braj, it's a big festival. It's Gopastami. And what does Gopastami signify? When Krishna graduated from the calves to the cows, there was a festival. It's the festival celebrating Krishna's first day of herding the cows. It was not just herding the cows, worshiping the cows before he herded the cows. So it's a big, it's Braj Bhakti from those people who reside in Vrindavan. So on the occasion of solar eclipse, there's a festival. There's a procedure that's followed. And the procedure that was followed during Krishna's time, from all directions, kings and their citizens, brahmanas and their paraphernalia, sages, and it was a big convergence, like Kumbh Mela, but for a different purpose than bathing in the Ganges on an auspicious day, an auspicious time during an auspicious day. It's like at the time of the lunar eclipse. I was in Mayapur once when there was a full lunar eclipse on the appearance day of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't know where all those people came from, from villages and from the heavenly planets, wherever they all came from. There was a lot of people taking bath in the Ganges, half submerged, and calling Gauranga's name loudly as the moon became fully covered. It's really spectacular. So, on the occasion of solar eclipse, this was what they went to a holy place to observe. You can observe the solar eclipse from any place, but they went to a holy place. And Kurukshetra is such a place. Kurukshetra is a place where not only the battle of Kurukshetra was fought, but many other things happened. Here's one of those many other things that happened. The battle between Bhishma and Parshuram took place at Kurukshetra. There's a battle between the first son of Santanu, the first son of Santanu, and Satyavati was who? Chitrangada. Chitrangada. He had a battle with a Gandharva at Kurukshetra for 3 years. And finally, he was killed by the Gandharva at Kurukshetra. And in that circumstance, Vichitravirya, his son, became the next king. And then many other things happened. But anyway, Kurukshetra, very auspicious place. Well known. So that's where they went. You can do in your living room, or you can go to a holy place. And it enhances. So they went. And the previous chapter to this one is made reference to in the first verse of chapter 84. In chapter 83, Draupadi, so she's the wife of the Pandavas, and she was born in a very special way, etc. Draupadi is a very special person. And when she met the queens at this confluence of many persons coming from many directions, she was in awe, and she wanted to hear their story. What's it like being married to Krishna? And how did it happen for your marriage? So then that's chapter 83. And now chapter 84 begins. And as Sridhar Swami is pointing out, those who are in tears to hear not just the story, but the love that the queens have for Krishna, it brought them to tears. So it mentions specifically Gandhari. Gandhari is not named Gandhari in the verse. It's Subala Putri, the daughter of King Subala, because that's who she was. She was the daughter, Putri, of King Subala. And Yagya Seni, because Draupadi came from a Yagya. Yagya Seni. And Subhadra is identified as Madhavi because she's the expansion of Madhava, so she's Madhavi. She's Yogamaya, Madhavi. It's nice. It's just nice. So they're all, and then there's the gopis. And having heard not just the story, but the intensity of the love of each of the queens of Krishna, how they became his queen in their life in Dwarka as queens. And we don't hear so much about it, except chapter 83, but then it's really special. So 2 points. One is, Sridhar Swami points out, Gandhari and Kunti, were not mentioned at all in the previous chapter. In the beginning of chapter 84, they're mentioned, and they were crying. Therefore, they heard it secondhand. It's deductive. And similarly, the gopis weren't mentioned, but they heard secondhand. Then there's a rasa topic. And here's something very nice. I've been preparing for a presentation on Madhurya Kandambani. And at the very beginning of Madhurya Kadambini, there are two Mangala Charana verses. Mangala Charana, invoking auspiciousness. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur dedicates the second Mangala Charana to Rupa Goswami. And the explanation given is that many persons prior to Rupa Goswami, they taught love for the Supreme Personality, pure devotion to the Supreme Person. However, by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he, Rupa Goswami, has revealed the rasa exchange of the personality of Godhead with his devotees. And that was the flavor of his writings, and then following his writings, the other acharyas following his writings. And that flavor came from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Specifically, spontaneous love, as found in the residence of Vrindavan. And it's not unheard of, it just wasn't emphasized as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized. And that's Rupa Goswami, because Lord Chaitanya empowered him to understand what others prior to him didn't understand, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wasn't their teacher, or revealing the highest truths of the pastimes of Krishna. And then, so in other words, it's a rasa question, or the message that's in this purport is, the gopis have what's the language he uses? Attitude. Whose attitude towards the queens of Dwarka was not particularly sympathetic. Not particularly sympathetic in the sense that the gopis were feeling separation. They weren't in a mundane sense of envy, because there's no mundane emotion in perfected souls. But they weren't particularly sympathetic. There was some discomfort. Not like you get Krishna's association, we don't get Krishna's association, so we're envious. But not particularly sympathetic either. And then Prabhupada's explanation, it has to do with rasa. It has everything to do with rasa. And if one doesn't understand rasa, then one won't understand Krishna, what to speak of Krishna's devotees. But if one has a sense of rasa, it's a impetus for ecstatic love. It intensifies their feeling of separation, to be with the queens. Not mundane envy and competition. And although to someone that doesn't understand rasa, they may perceive that or intuitively understand incorrectly. So our acharyas can help us to understand correctly through the science of rasa. And Sridhar Swami, the last point here is, Sridhar Swami is making his comment on these two words that are in the verse. The last words in the second line, Sva Gopyaha. Sva Gopyaha. And the grammar indicates that the queens who they were crying about their ecstatic love for Krishna, the queens were expansions of the gopis, not conversely. Say it again. Sva Gopya indicates the queens were expansions of the gopis. Now, some of you are aware, most of us are probably aware, that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a description that Radharani is the source of all the Shakti Tattva manifestations. And the list includes the queens. The gopis are Radha's expansions. The queens are Radha's expansions. The Lakshmis, or goddesses of fortune in Vaikuntha, are Radharani's expansions. Now, to say the gopis are her expansions, the gopis can expand as queens. It's one of these Sanskrit rules. A cause of something can be remote, doesn't have to be the immediate cause. Clear? It's an important understanding. Cause and effect. The cause of all causes is Krishna, and Krishna's personal Shakti is his Sva Shakti, his Svarup Shakti, has the Lanini potency element. And the Lanini potency can expand as Krishna can expand. No problem. And she expands. And as she expands, her expansions can expand. So the gopis expand as the queens. So that how there's envy, there's no competition. It's just, it's rasa. I'll say it again. If we don't understand rasa, it's perplexing. If we understand rasa, then it's sweet. They were crying, having secondhand heard what was the response of the queens from Draupadi's question, the previous chapter. So there they are in Kurukshetra. The occasion was the solar eclipse, but there's lots of other things that went on besides seeing the solar eclipse, and then they went back home. As it turns out, in the introduction to this chapter, Nanda Maharaj was so much appreciating the association he found that he stayed for 3 months. And when it was time to go, Vasudeva, after the solar eclipse, Vasudeva was so thrilled to be in the presence of the sages. He requested the sages to do be the chief priest of some procedures to invoke further auspiciousness on the occasion of everyone being together. So auspiciousness was created by their being together, and further auspiciousness created by the yajnas. And then after the yajnas, Vasudeva distributing gifts, this, that, and the other thing. It's all in the introduction to this purport, to this chapter. Observance of Vedic culture has its place for invoking auspiciousness. I'll just say two things and end. Yesterday evening, at Illinois Institute of Technology, one of the topic was chapter 13, Bhagavad Gita, verse 21-22. Purusha prakriti stohi bhungte prakriti janganan kananam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. And in the course of the discussion, we're through the association with the modes of material nature, we are our free will is being influenced in the direction of that a particular prominent modes of nature or mode of nature, and so we make choices influenced by nature, and then we're responsible for the behavior or the karma, the sad asad yoni janmasu. We're the creator of our good fortune, ill fortune, or in the language of that, the translation Prabhupada has given it good and evil. So the question was asked twice by two different people. Same question in different ways, but the same question. If our free will choices are so strongly influenced by the modes of nature, it sounds cyclical. How do you get out of that cycle? It's true, it's an endless cycle. Living entity is eternal. Prakriti doesn't stop. The living entity activates Prakriti, and then the modes of nature activate their shape their desires. So, what's the escape hatch? How do you get out? And bhakti is the ultimate answer. And then there's things that precede bhakti if one isn't ready for direct bhakti. Because some people don't have the association of devotees, they don't know. So, anyway, all of these observances that are being done, that are being described here and elsewhere, behind those observances, it's not that when one becomes a perfect soul like these persons assembled, they don't do auspicious things. They do auspicious things in pure consciousness. And by their influence, the world can change. And by the lack of such things, the world deteriorates. That's Kali Yuga. And the cycle of the four yugas, diminishing that observance of things that are auspicious in auspicious places and creating auspiciousness. So what can we do? We're little people. The direction, Kali Yuga direction, is going in the dark direction. What to do? And then we may be, and people dear to us may be undergoing difficulty of this kind, that kind, the other kind, social, emotional, physical, health things and things. What's a little person like us to do? It's just Krishna Bhakti, because it has the power to create auspiciousness, even in inauspiciousness, even in abundant inauspiciousness. What to do? And one other thing, and I'll end. I'm being asked. There's a plan. See if it happens. But the plan is during I forget which holiday it is, Mother's Day or something like that in January. There's a plan to have that holiday weekend festival or seminar on Vaishnava etiquette. Because we're becoming Vaishnavas, but we're not refined. So, like this is so respect is fundamental for people who are refined. And now, in what way should you respect? Here's an example. It's going to show up in January. Draupadi, no way would she even speak in front of Gandhari and Kunti, who are her superiors. They were not present, they weren't mentioned, but she wouldn't speak in their presence. It's just respect. It's just character of Vaishnava etiquette, and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth. There's so many examples. When Vedic culture, when there's etiquette observed, this is the Madhurya Kandambani topic. There are sources of anarthas, and there's different categories of sources of anarthas. And the most insidious and difficult to deal with is anarthas that arise from offense. And Besides Namaparad, there's 3 others. There's a really nice section of Seva Aparad. It has to do with Vaishnava etiquette. The bottom line with Seva Aparad is it has no effect unless it's intentional. You know, and you do otherwise. You know, something that should be done or something that shouldn't be done. And you know, and you do otherwise. There's examples in Mahabharata, there's examples in Bhagavatam, there's examples in the scripture. Here's one example. You don't transgress etiquette. You know, Vaishnava etiquette. You observe Vaishnava etiquette. And you fail to observe Vaishnava etiquette, and you know, and you fail to observe it anyways, it's offense. And that offense is a stain. It's hard. When you have stains, it's hard to remove stains. There's a wonderful science to bhakti. It helps to know the science, because otherwise you can do some boo-boos and then you have some difficulty. Why am I having difficulty? Because of offense. What if I didn't know? The culpability or the reaction is less. It's a nice topic. How to become cultured Vaishnavas. It's a nice topic. Okay, that's this morning's class. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Yes, sir. Here, Swagopya, that you are analyzing, very nice. But question is coming, like, what is the position of gopis?
I can't follow.
What is the position of
What's the position of
gopis
gopis?
in Shakti Tattva?
In
Shakti Tattva?
Shakti Tattva. They're Krishna's Swa Shakti. They're expansions of Radha. The gopis are expansions of Radha. What's the position of Radha? What's the position of Radha? Swarup Shakti. Radha's expansions are expansions of her. They're in the category of Swarup Shakti. And in Tattva terminology, that's what they are, or who they are. So, but
Acharya, Sri Jiva Goswami, he explains that, like, Swarupa, Gopis are Swarupa Shakti of Krishna himself.
yeah,
So, here in this purport, it is mentioned, you read that Queen's expansion.
no, the other way around. Not the gopis are the queen's expansions.
That is
The queens are the gopis' expansions. It has to do with grammar and the way the grammatical composition. Well, I'll read it. Listen, it's a grammar issue. Srila Sridhar Swami Pad further analyzes the phrase Svagopya as implying that these gopis were the queens Swarup, comma, the original prototypes of whom the queens were specific expansions. It's Sanskrit grammar. Queens is plural, that's correct. The original prototypes, plural, of whom the queens were the specific expansions, the prototypes from which you know what a prototype is. From this, you make copies. You get a patent, you go to the patent office, here's the prototype, you get a patent for the prototype. And then you can make copies of the prototype. So the prototype is the gopis. And their specific expansions are the queens. But to unpack it, you have to know Sanskrit. I don't know Sanskrit, but I trust Sridhar Swami knows Sanskrit, and that's his explanation. And the same thing, what he is saying is the same thing what Krishnadas Kaviraj says. Same thing. It's not contradiction. Something else?
Again,
What?
Problem is this, like Jiva Goswami is explaining that on this context, that Jiva Shakti cannot become the gopis.
I couldn't follow.
Jiva Shakti.
Jiva Shakti.
Correct. Jiva Shakti cannot become gopis. Okay. And if
They
so,
become assistants. They don't. Jiva doesn't become Shakti Tattva. Jivas can become assistants.
okay, if it is like that, then he is giving example like, for example, then all the sons of Agni.
All the what?
Sons of Agni Dev.
All the what?
Fire god, Agni Dev. So they became gopis. In that, and again, there's like another like Dandakaranya, the sages, they took part in gopis.
But what does that mean? Do they change their tattva, or does it mean they adopt the mood of? In that sense, one can become by adopting the mood of. That's exactly what the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Raga Bhakti includes absorption, meditation upon the ragatmikas. They're not posts. People occupy those posts. They're expansions. You can't become Yashoda. You can't become Radharani. You can become the assistant of her or her expansions. You can't become Lalita. You can't become Vishaka. You can become assistants of. So the same mood. It's a rasa consideration.
And if like that, then again in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it has been mentioned that these queens, they are the image of Radha.
But yeah, so it's words.
Reflection.
You're drilling on words, but it's not. There's nothing contradictory about it. There's no contradiction to say the image of. One way is they're expansions of, and thus the image of, or it could be reflection, that kind of image. But don't get lost over language, please. And I don't want to take any more time on this. Thank you. Back here.
Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for a wonderful class. My question is regarding Seva Aparad. Suppose we're in a group of devotees doing Seva, whether it's garland making or cooking, and someone is committing offenses, and we're hearing while we're doing Seva, and we cannot get out of that circle because we're doing Seva. Would that contaminate us and cause Seva Aparad to us also, like a second-hand effect?
I'm not sure I got it. Keep it simple.
Okay,
'Cause the sound system in my ears don't work well together.
okay, we're doing seva, whether it's making garland, the act of
You
making
making
garland.
garlands,
Yes.
and
And there is a devotee who is committing aparad, like,
while you're sitting there making garlands, somebody in the vicinity is doing offense.
yes,
You want to know, are you culpable for their offense?
yes,
No. Unless, you're like, you know, yes, you're not responsible for others' choices of words and actions. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Govinda.